Have you ever wondered if serial killers are born or made? Maybe they took inspiration from other psychopaths, or they even followed in the footsteps of other killers. But maybe they were inspired by the films and or documentaries that were written based off of these killers. So, the real question here is, should these film companies stop making these films and or documentaries that may glorify these killers? But also, what films and or documentaries are considered to glorify serial killers, and should the film industry stop making these types of films? So, today we will be talking about and bringing into light some of these serial killers, what some of these serial killers that have been glorified, who they are, what they did, and lastly, the films and or documentaries that they have inspired. Who are the serial killers that may have been glorified? Some of these killers may sound familiar to you. Maybe you've already seen them in movies, YouTube videos, true crime stories, anything. Some of these killers are considered to be people like Ed Gein, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, and John Wayne Gacy. These are only some to mention. So many films and documentaries have been either based off of these people, or they have created characters that are inspired by them. Now we're going to move on to some of these serial killers are and what they did. Many of these murderers have many things in common, from how they committed their murders to whom they choose their victims to be. Here is some background on these serial killers. To begin with, Ed Gein. And I will give a trigger warning because it can sound very gruesome sometimes. Ed Gein was a Wisconsin murderer and was quickly known worldwide due to his gruesome crimes. He was found guilty of grave robbing body parts that he would use to make daily household items, as well as other objects. Gein was also found guilty of murdering one woman. He also confessed to murdering another. Gein is also suspected of maybe killing his older brother. Moving on to Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer was also a Wisconsin killer and was arrested one night after one of his victims was able to escape. He eventually confessed to committing more than a dozen murders. These murders would include torture and mutilation, as well as abuse of his victims' corpses. Many of them were young boys, and his victims ranged between the ages of 14 and 33 years old. As of right now, Dahmer has 17 known victims. Moving on to Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was found guilty of murdering about 30 different women in 7 different states in the mid-1970s. But his killing spree began way back in 1969. He would kidnap, rape, torture, and murder these young women, one being as young as 12 years old. Ted Bundy also had a specific kind of victim that he always looked for. White women with black hair, long black hair with a part down the middle, just like I have. Moving on to John Wayne Gacy. Gacy was well known and loved by his community. He would often dress up as his characteristic Pogo the Clown. Gacy would torture, rape, and murder many young men and teenage boys. Gacy also confessed to having murdered up to 45 young men and teenage boys. Most of these victims were buried on his own property, and Gacy would many times meet these young victims through his contracting firm. Lastly, we are going to talk about the films and documentaries that these serial killers have inspired. Many serial killers inspired other well-known serial killers, but there are so many different films and documentaries that were heavily inspired by them as well. Here's a few to name. To begin with, Ed Gein. He inspired films like Monster, the Ed Gein story. Psycho, Chainsaw Massacre, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Deranged, The Silence of the Lambs, Ed Gein, The Butcher of Plainfield, and many more. Some of these facts being true, while others not so much about the killer. Next is Jeffrey Dahmer. Dahmer inspired films and documentaries like My Friend Dahmer, Conversations with a Killer, The Jeffrey Dahmer Tapes, Dahmer Monster, The Jeffrey Dahmer Story, and more. Sometimes many people become obsessed with the serial killer and even sometimes making excuses for them and the horrible crimes that they committed just because they're appealing to the audience or handsome. Next is John Wayne Gacy. Gacy inspired films and documentaries like John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise, The John Wayne Gacy Murder, Life and Death in Chicago, The John Wayne Gacy, Conversations with a Killer, The John Wayne Gacy Tapes, To Catch a Killer, Gacy, and more. It was crazy to know that he was well loved by his community, that he was hiding horrible secrets underneath his clown makeup and costume. Lastly is Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy is inspired films and documentaries like Ted Bundy Falling for a Killer, Conversations with a Killer, The Ted Bundy Tapes, Ted Bundy Serial Monster, Ted Bundy An American Monster, and many more, driven mostly by his sexual desires across 7 different states. And my works cited for these reasons are www.britannica.com, www.aetv.com, people.com, www.netflix.com, www.cosmopolitan.com, and www.tmdb.com. In conclusion, today we talked about serial killers and the films and or documentaries that they have inspired. We talked about their crimes, what they did, and how they executed them as well. First, we talked about who these serial killers were and the ones that may have been glorified. Next, we talked about who they are and what they did. And lastly, we talked about the films and documentaries that these serial killers have inspired. In the end, both these films and documentaries or movies serve many purposes for the audience, both being good and bad, bringing to light these horrible people in hopes that people don't become like them or become aware of people like them. But also it brings into light the victims and their remembrance as well. Not only being victims, but also being the people that they were. But sometimes the public likes to glorify them and even wants to be like them, which is not good, which is the downfall of such films. Thank you.